LPG. It's always a question that people laugh at when I say there's a lot of innovation to be done in this space, and people think, okay, there's a cylinder, there's gas, what else can you do with it? With myself and my competitors, we're not trying to fight each other, we're trying to grow the market, and that's really where the focus needs to be. It's been quite a journey. I've been in the energy space for about 7 years, also in the fintech space. So it's blending all my experience into one. But yeah, LPG is obviously a very important industry for Kenya and for Africa. So it's been a kind of ever-evolving process and journey over the last 4 years. It's very different because it's quite an established industry. So a lot of my experience has been more on the startup side, where you're trying to introduce to different topics or segments into the market. LPG has been, a pretty strong foundation in the Kenyan market for quite some time. So it was established, but how do we now take it to the next level? How do we innovate LPG? It's always a question that people laugh at when I say there's a lot of innovation to be done in this space, and people think, okay, there's a cylinder, there's gas, what else can you do with it? But there is a lot of opportunity around kind of innovation, access, to ensure that every household is able to achieve the result of clean cooking and not have the harmful effects that charcoal and firewood give them. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is competition. I think competition is healthy, right? It keeps every brand on its toes. We're here to serve the customer. We're here to serve the households. But what is unique about Kenya is there's a massive opportunity to grow the industry. LPG penetration is considerably low for where it should be of a market this size. And so, I think with myself and my competitors, we're not trying to fight each other. We're trying to grow the market, and that's really where the focus needs to be. So we need to then again kind of come to collectively together and say, how do we increase the penetration to make sure every household is using an LPG cylinder, versus how do I take an Afri-Gas customer or a Total customer or a Rubis customer. The pool is still quite small, so it doesn't make sense. And from a customer perspective, having choice and options is really important. It's what helps keep down the cost, and it gives them, choices of what they want to bring into their home. It's an interesting concept. There's pros and cons to both sides of it. You over-regulate, you basically stifle the growth opportunities. I think because, again, the industry is still quite premature in the potential that it can reach. Over-regulating will ultimately drive up costs more than it will help. You need to keep competition in the market. You need to allow customers to kind of make their decisions on what they want to bring into their home. Over-regulating at this point, will only decrease the availability and ultimately increase the cost long term. But Kenya is unique. We have a really fantastic regulatory framework. I mean, I have to commend, the government, and that over the years they have continued to create an LPG framework that is unmatched across most of the global markets out there that are really pushing LPG. If you look at Article 100 and you look at the specific regulations, it's quite advanced. So that is in support of the industry. There is better enforcement that can be happening to those regulations, which I know the government has been working really diligently on. And I know this current administration has made this one of their top priorities, which is very helpful. And so that will, again, continue to drive down the costs, but allow Kenya to really shine on an African platform for what regulation can mean and the benefits that it can have to the household level. It is a volatile product, right? There is risk involved with it. But again, if you look at the regulations we have in place, if regulations are followed, it is a very safe product to have in your home. I have it in my home with my kids, and I encourage others to have it in their home with their children as well. We have come a long way as an industry, both locally and globally, and ensuring that the products that we're putting into a household are safe. The movement of the cylinders, the movement of the gas itself from Mombasa up into the depots where it's being filled into the cylinders, that has all been very carefully designed. I mean, KEBS has done a lot over the last 10 years in continuing to update the specifications and the safety quality aspects that need to be incorporated in every segment of the supply chain to ensure that what you bring into your home is safe. And so I think, again, it becomes more of making sure those regulations are followed, and then continuing to look at what's happening globally and where we can improve. And that's going to always be an ongoing, continuous exercise. Because you need to look at what regulation and how it would then impact Kenya. Again, Kenya is a very premature market when it comes to LPG. So you want people to, one, have access. You need to make it affordable for them to bring into their home. And then you need to make it safe so that they continue to use it every time they want that cup of tea or they want to cook, ugali for their family. So again, I don't think that it's a specific questions. It's kind of on a regulation by regulation basis on what makes sense for this market. Not all markets are the same. What you would do, in Kenya, for instance, is not the same thing that you're going to do in maybe a European country. And so, those are all considerations that need to be reviewed when trying to put regulation into place. I think, again, as an industry, we're welcome to regulation. We all are every day striving to make sure that we are delivering a safe product. We've all put a lot of money into building our brands. It's a very CapEx intensive industry. You've got the cylinders that you need to manufacture, you've got the equipment, you've got the tanks, you've got the trucks. Like, there's a lot of money that goes into this, and nobody does it just haphazardly. Oh, let me just open up an LPG plant today. And so everyone is very keen to make sure that their operations are safe because of how much money they've invested into it. And I think ultimately, and we've had a lot of meetings as an industry to look at what's happening in other markets to see what we can bring in and how we can make our product either more accessible or safer. You're seeing a lot in the startup world right now. As far as like different technologies and vessels. You have the safe cylinder, which is the composite cylinder. You have the metal cylinders. So, continuing to evaluate that, I think that's mostly done on a brand level and how much you want to continue to invest. And then ultimately, what does your growth strategy look like? That all plays a role in it. It's a concern for everybody. I mean, it's obviously a concern for me as a brand. It's concerning to my customers. Are they buying a legitimate cylinder or is it a counterfeit cylinder? We face some of the same issues that other industries are facing, such as technology, electronics, and food and beverage and so forth. So it is something that needs to be addressed continuously. Again, it's not a let's focus on it today and we've solved the problem situation. It's an ongoing situation, and I know that we've received support from the government, from the administration, on ways to tackle this problem, and we've opened up channels for customers to buy directly from us. We send them to our preferred retailers who we know are selling legitimate non-counterfeit cylinders. So again, giving that access to people and the awareness. And I know that there's some awareness campaigns that are going to be launching soon as well as it pertains to this space, so that customers know what to look for, what questions they should be asking, so that they know the cylinder that they're buying is a legitimate cylinder. Yeah, so we have a few kind of unique features. We do have a preferred retail network where you can call our toll-free number and you're able to find the closest retailer to your home that has legitimate product available. We have a home delivery system as well that is available, so you can order directly from the plant to your home. And then with your normal retail shops that are available on the corner, there is a unique seal. And there's a barcode on every cylinder. So you can call our customer service line, give us the barcode number, and we can tell you when and where that cylinder was filled. So, in practice, it should have been filled within the last week or two from one of our filling facilities, and we can give you that information so that when you're buying it, you are buying with confidence that it is a legitimate and non-counterfeit cylinder. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We need to hit people, through our traditional media channels. Social media, obviously, in some markets is really effective. If I'm trying to reach people in Nairobi, I can hit a lot of people very quickly using social media. But if I'm trying to reach my customers, my households in Mombasa, that's not the most effective way, is through social media. So you need to work partnerships with your retailers. You need to be on the ground. That's why we set up our toll-free hotline so that customers can call us. But how do you get the number out? I mean, you really got to use word of mouth to get the messaging out there so that people know how, one, to find the right cylinder, and two, how to operate the cylinder. That's just as much of an important component because you have households that have never had LPG. So you give them the cylinder, you give them the regulator, or you give them the burner, and you're like, okay, go figure it out, right? So how do you attach it properly? How do you make sure that it is shut off? What are the proper usage techniques that you should employ to make sure that you are operating it safely? And so we do a lot of campaigns, again, on the ground and through social media to get that message out to our customers. And we spend a lot of time with retailers as well, training them, training their staff, so that they can convey the message to the customers that are buying the product. And it's good regardless of what brand you're buying, right? Because, a retailer, when you empower them with that information, they're able to share it with all of their customers. We had a big LPG workshop summit on Friday, and this was another point of discussion with the regulator, EPRA, on how do we do a national awareness campaign. And I think it's a great collaboration point between the regulator and between the brands. Sometimes we tend to be a little more hip and we know how to get the messaging out than maybe a regulator will be able to do, because you don't want to make it stale. You don't want to make it boring for people to hear. So we really need a really good awareness campaign, one that doesn't provoke fear into people, because it's not necessary to educate through fear, but you educate to empower them so that they can make the decisions and know how to operate it. So I know that there's a few programs that will be coming up over the next few months to better collaborate on how do we get the messages out to the household level. LPG being such a small segment of the overall energy population, and it doesn't necessarily get as much attention as it should, and that's where we as an industry not only need to work with the regulators, but we need to take action into our own hands. We cannot wait for the regulator to solve all of our problems. I, as Proto, and as operating Seagas and Progas, I can get that messaging out there. Same as Total, same as Vivo, same as Rubis. We all have the power to get this messaging out. And if we're going to wait for somebody to come along and help us, it's an easy excuse, it's an easy answer, but it's a very important topic. So I think it's, again, a combination approach, because we know that the regulator has a number of initiatives. They're working on petroleum as well, right? And if you look at, if you have to talk to a household and have them rate their level of importance, you're probably going to have petroleum at the top. You're probably going to have electricity. Again, and statistically looking at the numbers, you've got less than an 18% LPG penetration rate in this market of 56 million people. And so again, they're kind of working, I'm sure, off of a priority level, but that doesn't stop us as an industry from taking the messaging into our own hands and promoting it. No, and I think that was kind of our theme last year going into 2023 was, really around innovation, and obviously AI plays a massive role on that. How do we know where our product needs to be? How do we know where our customers are? How do we, schedule, coordinate the trucks to make sure that they're delivering the product where it needs to be delivered for as cost efficiently as possible? And so, we have a whole tech stack, and we're every day working to build additional technology into our ecosystem. And AI has played a pretty important role, I would say, in the last 6 months on the prediction levels. How do we increase the penetration? It can really seep into every area of the business, safety as well. We've done surveys and outbound calling to understand what is the level of information people have. You were talking about an awareness campaign. Where do you even begin? You need to start with a level of technology, data, and then be able to incorporate, the learnings into that to be able to push messaging out to the right people. The message I need to give in Nairobi, for instance, is going to be different than the message that I need to give in Kakamega. And so how do we use technology and AI to drive that messaging? How do we use it to create more products and services? Again, it's not just a cylinder and it's not just gas. How do we make it more affordable? How do we make the way it's paid for easier for the household? Those are all of the components where AI technology play a really critical role, and that's what's going to set the brands apart from one another. And that's ultimately where you'll have some winners and some losers in the long term. So I think anyone who's looking at the business to say, oh, it's a cylinder and it's gas, is really going to ultimately miss the mark long term, because it can be so much more than that. So AI is one of my more favorite subjects to talk about, because even over the last 6 months, we've really been able to play with it and understand how we can embed it into different parts of the operation to gain the efficiencies that we need to.
Is it working for you so far?
It is. I mean, it's a trial and error, I will say. We have some good wins, we have some losses, and we have been looking at kind of order predictability and so forth, and how to distribute the cylinders in a more predictable manner based on previous ordering history from retailers to end consumers. And we've had some amazing learnings out of that. And it's an ongoing, because as I mentioned, the industry is still continuing to go, penetration is still continuing to increase. And so you have to keep pulling in that data and training the technology, the system, to be able to ingest that and now start to predict, for instance, where do cylinders need to be distributed, how are people ordering, when they need to order. I mean, I do feel that one day we're going to get to it where you won't even have to make that call to have a new cylinder delivered, because the only time your cylinder is out is when you're cooking a meal, right? so you only know it's now the cylinder has finished. You're in the middle of cooking that romantic meal for your wife, and you have no gas. And so how does the systems be able to predict that so that the cylinder is delivered before you actually run out, so you're not caught not being able to finish that meal? This is a program that's really near and dear to my heart. I have 7 boys of my own, so they're obviously part of the education system. And we took on a mission last year. Right now, all the schools are using wood to prepare our children's lunches. And if you look at boarding schools, the 5 meals a day that they're providing is all done off of firewood. And so it's not a sustainable option. And with the climate change, especially last night with the rains, and we're in a very weird environment right now, climate-wise, in Kenya, it's something that we need to address now. So what we did is we created a kind of off-the-shelf solution where we can go in and convert a school using a lot of their own infrastructure, but then adding on tanks and certain safety elements. to convert them over to using pure LPG. And then they're able to be receiving their deliveries every few days to fill up their tanks and be able to operate. And we've seen great success with the program. We've seen healthier and happier kids. The cooking staff are really benefiting. We've had some chefs who have lost their eyesight due to the smoke that they're exposed to. I mean, we have, people who are cooking meals for our children are smoking the equivalent of 8 packs of cigarettes a day. That is not needed in this day and age. We have solutions, they're available, they're safe, they're easy to install, and they're very cost efficient. So our mission is to really, kind of blanket the country and convert these schools so that they can have the same health and ultimately lead to climate change, which we know is affecting us heavily in the agriculture sector, for instance, right now today. So we're hoping to convert, a few thousand schools in the short term. We have been, really working with global partners to highlight the problem and to bring the funds and the support needed to be able to accelerate this program. It's not cheap. At the same time, it's more expensive not to do it long term when you're looking at the health impacts of our children and of our school officials. But there is ways to, subsidize the cost. The schools that we've converted to date have been fully subsidized through our partners. And so we want to bring in more partners so that we can, subsidize that upfront cost for them. And then they will just pay the ongoing LPG costs, which right now, they're already spending the money on firewood, so it's a kind of equal replacement, if you will. So we started the pilot program in end of Q3 last year. So right now we're in the school registration process, and we have about 2,200 schools. So there is a kind of process that the schools will have to go through. They need to obviously, one, express interest. We send our team out to do an inspection, understand is the school able to be converted, how are they able to be converted, and then they get slotted into an eventual conversion date. So the uptake has been really good from that perspective. There's a lot of education that goes into it. So the schools that we converted last year, over the last 2 weeks, we've been doing our kind of normal maintenance, but also additional training for the staff so they know how to operate the systems safely, and then just overall maintenance of the systems that we've installed. When they see the benefits that come from converting from firewood to LPG, they're pretty quick to say yes. I think out of the kind of 2,200 schools, we were reaching out to schools in the beginning. I only had one school that flat out said no, which was pretty remarkable, given that you would think that sometimes maybe special interest would overtake the need and the benefit that the school would receive, but it has been complete opposite, and it has been so well embraced. So it's a program that we're really excited about. It has a lot of opportunity and a lot of benefits, and I think it's one area that Kenya will really be able to showcase its drive in the climate change initiatives and action that it is taking. Oh, so much. I feel like it's a year that there is a lot of possibilities. Obviously we are all so disheartened by what happened. It was not the best way to start off the year. We work very hard as an industry to ensure that there are no accidents and that it is a very safe environment and ecosystem that we're operating in. But again, I think that we can honor those that have been injured and lives lost by using this experience and making sure that we're always doing everything that we can do to make sure that not only we're operating safely, but then those around us are also operating safely. So I think it started off the year, ensuring that we can reevaluate our priorities, but at the same time, what is possible? We know that there is millions of households that are not reaping the benefits of LPG. We have some amazing partnerships and programs that we're going to be launching this year, which I'm very excited about, kind of taking all of the technology and all of the experience that we've built up over the last few years and really ensuring that we're forward in a way that is sustainable for them, because it's never sadder to see you walk into a house and you might see a cylinder but it's empty, and it's been empty, and they're cooking with charcoal, and so you don't want people to have to make that choice when the LPG is a much healthier option for them. So I'm really excited. I know that we've gone through some tough times. I've been in Kenya for 15 years now, so I've seen the good times, I've seen the bad times, and the one thing that always has inspired me is the resilience that we as Kenyans have, and the no matter what's coming our way, we figure out how to make it work, and we are always striving to do better and be better, and so I think that's really what's going to shine in 2024, is that resilience of making what is potentially a not great economic situation into something of innovation and new design and new ideas to really take us to that next level. Seagas was a very strong brand and still is, and we've really tried to stay true to the original founder's vision for Seagas. Obviously, it is the number one player in the coastal market. It's well loved, well received. It is picking up in other areas of the country, and so we treat them as two different children. We love them the same, but we do treat them as two different brands, because they appeal to people differently. You're either pink or you're red, and they each have an appeal to the segment that they're trying to serve. So we do stay kind of ensure that they have their own brand identities. I mean, yeah, South Sudan, Ethiopia. I mean, they're all very ready for LPG. Kenya is really leading the charge if you look at the region as a whole, and that is still way below where it should be. So the region has so much opportunity: Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, South Sudan, DRC. There's a lot of households still yet to reach, and we're looking. I have my height set on 90 million households, as my team will, say we're not done until we hit 90 million households. So that's where the focus is, and how do we need to get there? It's obviously a very systematic approach, and really, talking to our customers, understanding their challenges. That's my favorite activity, is when I can go be in the market for the day and really understand what are some of the barriers that's preventing people from either refilling their cylinders or getting a cylinder into their home.